Max already from the view perspective? Hello, everyone. We'll give a few minutes to allow more people to join. Let us give it one more minute, then we can start. Okay, welcome everyone to this webinar of today. And we're going to talk about the IBM MQ Adapter for SAP Integration Suite. And our idea is to tell you a little bit what SAP released and to give you some perspective on it and allow you at the end to ask some questions as well. In the agenda, just some points here you can see. We will talk about Rojo integration, who we are, and to give you a feeling of the background of us as a company. We'll talk about third-party connectivity with SAP Cloud Integration. We'll zoom into the adapter itself, tell you features. We will give you a demo, and then we will have a Q&A session. Presenting to you today will be myself, John Billet. I'm an enterprise integration consultant, together with my colleague, Shashank Kasavani. We'll take you through this webinar. Okay. Without further ado, I will tell you, we as Rojo has been an SAP integration for SAP partner for a very long time. And in this domain of integration, we have our offices in the Netherlands, Spain, and India. And through that, we're covering all the regions of the world. We have strategic partnership, obviously, with SAP, but it does not stop there. We are partner of Solar, Splunk, Coupa, and others. When it comes to SAP, we have a very deeply valued strategic partnership, and we've been working very closely with them in the domain of integration suite. We, in that same domain, have released as well, as you can see on the right there, a number of integration content. So these are predefined integrations that we released to serve some synchronization or integration between different SAP systems and third-party systems like Salesforce or Coupa for this particular case, just to give you an example here. Within the integration suite, the SAP integration suite domain, you can see there's a lot of component to it, of which there are government, there are apps, you have the API management, you have advanced event mesh, cloud integration, open connector, integration advisor, migration assessment. You must be probably familiar with this screen here. We wanted to focus on that third-party apps in green, where you see connectivity with third-party systems, where we are working closely with our SAP colleagues on the domain. And within that, there is really a lot of, systems that, we obviously working to integrate. In the next screen here, you will see an example of some of those systems, just to name few: Coupa, Snowflake, Anaplan. There's many of them, of which today we will spend time to focus on the IBM MQ that you see there, right? Okay, now without further ado, I will zoom in into the IBM MQ one. But before leaving this page, as you can see these applications, you might have some ideas of some other application that you will ideally like to see covered. If so, feel free as well to bring it up later on, when we reach the section where you have questions, for instance. Okay, now when it comes to the IBM MQ adapter, the adapter has two main parts. You have the so-called REST-based variant, and we have the JMS variant of it. I will explain both, but I will start with the JMS variant of the adapter. So let's talk about the features. This is the JMS as you used to when you talk about SAP process orchestration or process integration, IAPI. You, for instance, as feature, authentication is important. How do you authenticate when we connect to IBM MQ? There's basic authentication, which was released quite a while, and there is certificate-based authentication, which will be available in the coming weeks. There's different versions of the IBM MQ which are supported. You can see there are to 9.2, 9.3, 9.4. You also have cloud-based, the cloud-based IBM MQ is also covered, whereas the other ones are on-premise. From a protocol, on the sender side, you have JMS, because this is the JMS that I'm talking about. That's on the receiver, and on the sender side, you have JMS polling and you have subscriber. The difference between polling and subscribing is obviously that polling, you can tell it that every minute go fetch messages in the queue, whereas the subscriptions remain subscribe and picks message immediately when they arrive. As I talked about, the runtime covered is both cloud, and you can also run it on IEC, Edge Integration Cell, if that's your use case. Now, diving specifically into the sender adapter, we talked about the polling and the subscribing operation, and being the two, you can basically, because it's a sender adapter, you can read messages from queues or from topics, and you can get multiple messages at the same polling time when it polls. If you choose the polling one, it gets a lot of messages at the same time. But it also supports a lot of properties and headers. So, our properties and headers, you work in the integration suite, all of those are supported. You can do things like duplicate check. If you will not want the same message to be picked twice, you can enable that. And there's a lot of post-processing messages, which is what do you do after you've picked up the message? What will you want to be done? It gets removed. Things like acknowledgement based. These are post-processing that are covered. On the receiver side, obviously, you use the receiver adapter to write messages to queues and topics as well. Same thing here, properties applies. So anything that you have as a header or property in your integration flow can be used. So custom headers, basically, you can also write customer headers to JMS. We support both text messages when we write to JMS, as well as byte. You can choose. There is also support for persistence and non-persistent messages that we're delivering in JMS. It basically dictates if you want the messages to remain after your IBM MQ has basically restarted, right? So then you want the persistence one, so the persistent option, let's say. But if you don't do that, the non-persistent will disappear after a restart of your MQ server. Depending on your scenario, you can choose accordingly, obviously. We then have the REST feature, the REST variant of this IBM MQ. And here you can see there's basic authentication. You have token-based authentication as well, which is released, and similar than the other one, the certificate-based authentication will be available in a few weeks. From the REST, it's REST protocol supported, and there are these 3 API versions which are supported currently. When it comes to the sender adapter of the REST one, it's mostly polling because it's APIs in this case. So you poll at given times that you configured. We can support all type of query, all type of request headers. So when you read a message from JMS, it comes with all the headers. We can pull it all in. It comes in. Things like duplicate check that we talked about is also supported here, as well as post-processing, what to do after you picked up a message. Finally, when it comes to the receiver adapter, here you can do a little bit more. You can write, you can delete, you can read and delete at the same time as well. You have a lot of options. You can even write custom request, headers while writing your messages. Yeah, so that gives you a little bit of an idea, high level of what is covered. So this is pretty much comparable to to what you had in PIPO. And with this very high level view, it's good to see a bit of the adapter in action. So from that perspective, I will let my colleague Shashank show us a little bit the adapter in action.
Thank you, John. Let me now share my screen. Hi everyone, my name is Shashank, and I would be taking you through the IBM MQ Adapter in SAP Cloud Integration. So let me right away jump to that, and I'll share my screen. Second, yeah. So I believe you should be able to see my cloud integration. Let me go to the edit phase. As John highlighted, we have 2 variants, as in the IBM MQ Adapter is supported on both sender as well as on the receiver side. On sender side, when I choose IBM MQ, you would see 3 different possible options that you can choose from. 2 of them are based on the JMS protocol, one with the polling mechanism, one with the subscription, and then we do have the REST variant as well. Let us deep dive into the subscription mode. So when you choose this JMS subscription option on the connection side, you can provide your host and port of your IBM MQ server. Currently, we do support basic, but soon we would have the client certificate authentication as well here. With basic, you provide the credential name. You can provide the queue manager and the channel name where a queue resides. In case you have a one-way SSL communication enabled, you then provide the Cypher Suite name as well. You can use a custom application name in order to specify as a particular scenario. It could be a business use case as well that you can define here. There are different protocols that you can connect with the TCP and the WebSphere. This is also coming from a PO, so people having PO background would also be able to relate to this configuration. It depends whether a client and server based on the same machine or on different. So based on the scenario, you can choose the right network protocol in your case. And then you can also define the char set ID that you are going to consume the events from the IBM MQ server. On the processing side, we do have queue and topic, so you can read the data from both queue and topic. With queue, you need to provide the queue name. You can decide to provide the target client as WebSphere MQ or JMS compliant. With WebSphere MQ, you do not get the basic JMS RFS2 headers, but with JMS compliant, you get all the JMS headers that are part of your message. So depending on your use case, you can choose either of them. On the sender side, we do have the transactional setting that you can enable. So if you enable that, you will get the following option as well. If you disable, then you would just receive the message, and if your IFO fails, you would no longer be able to do the transaction on it. But if you enable it, you can then decide in scenario when you receive the message from your JMS queue, it's in your integration flow, and if the message failed in a subsequent step, you can decide whether you want to move the message to another queue. You can decide what would be the retry attempt after which it should go and which queue it should go. You can also decide to keep the message and you want to process it again in some scenarios. And of course, if this is disabled, then the transaction is no longer enabled, and you will receive the message in your iFlow, and then you can then later decide to send it to some other application or some other queue yourself using the receiver adapter if required. This, as highlighted, is a JMS subscription, which means that there is an active subscription always, which implies that as soon as the message is delivered to a particular topic or to a particular queue, you would receive the message real time, near real time. In case you choose a polling mechanism of JMS, which is the other variant that is supported on the sender side, in that case, you then decide to poll events using the JMS protocol from the queue or the topic that you choose from. The connection tab remains pretty much the same in terms of the authentication and in terms of the details that you need to provide in order to connect to your IBM MQ server. One thing that would change is that you need to also provide a polling interval. Since this is a polling mechanism, you can then define the time interval when you would want to retrieve the data from your queue or a topic. And then there's also a max wait time that you can also configure. This configuration helps you to make sure that your adapter, the sender adapter, waits for a specific amount of time. So in case there is no message, it will wait, for example, in this case, 100 milliseconds to receive any new message. You can, of course, increase it or decrease it based on your scenarios. On the processing side, we do have queues and topic. With queues, you provide the queue name from where you would want to receive the message, the target client, and the JMS transaction handling remains pretty much the same. With polling mechanism, you also have an option of deciding whether you want to make sure that all the worker nodes within your cloud integration operates, or you can also then decide that you want to operate on a single worker node based on the use case where you would want to retain the sequence and other things. You can decide whether you want to choose a single worker node to operate on. And then you have also an option to control the number of messages that you would want to have in a single poll. So you can decide, and this is per node, meaning if you have enabled this poll on one worker node with a max message node as 10, you would have one worker node and it would poll 10 message every poll interval that you specify. And if you disable this, this configuration still remains, but then this 10 message would be happening on all the worker nodes that you have active in your cloud integration. In case you have two worker nodes, then you will have 10 message per node that would be operated on your cloud integration. In case of topic, you can define the topic name or a topic string. It supports both of them. There's client ID and client subscription because topic creates a durable consumer within IBM MQ. So you can define the client ID and subscription ID in order to create unique durable consumer based on the client ID and subscription ID that you provide here. Then we do have the IBM MQ receiver adapter as well, which is also two different protocols, the JMS and the HTTP protocol. If I choose JMS, let's first look at that. The connection tab, again, it remains the same with you to provide the hostname, port, authentication, the queue manager, the channel configurations, the cipher suite name based on the SSL enable or not. On the processing side, you can decide to send a message to a topic or to a queue. In case you choose a queue, you can provide the queue name, the target client. Again, this will help you to regulate the RFS2 headers, the JMS headers. If you want to send it as part of your message, or if you don't want to, you can choose accordingly. And then you can also enable the transaction. On the receiver side, it will then the adapter would, based on this configuration, if the message was successfully sent, it will perform a commit, or it will do a rollback based on the communication when it happens with IBM MQ server. We do have an advanced option as well, where you can decide if you want to send a message as a text or as a byte message. You can provide your own correlation ID. This is a positions mode that we were talking about, where you can decide to send a message as a position message, which would survive a restart of your IBM MQ server, or as a non-position message. You can decide the reply to destination queue, the expiration time of how much the message should survive in your queue or a topic, the priority of the message, and also the timestamp associated to it. You can also using this table can provide different JMS properties. These custom properties that you create here would be part of the message that would be sent to the IBM MQ server, and that would also be visible within the named properties of your IBM MQ console. So you can see that there as well. So this was about the JMS setting. We can quickly have a look at the REST variant, where we have the sender adapter again with the REST option. When you choose it, this is a polling mechanism with REST protocol at the background. Here you provide the address of your endpoint that you would want to connect for your IBM MQ server connection. Here we do support two type of authentication right now. We have basic and tokens-based authentication. In REST API, you can also connect to an on-premise IBM MQ server using the cloud connector. So you can choose on-premise, and then of course you can provide the location ID, and then you go to your IBM MQ server via the cloud connector configuration. On the processing side, we do support 3 different versions of the APIs provided by IBM MQ. Each of these versions have different possibilities that you can do with the adapter. So for example, in receiver adapter, I'll show you some scenarios as well. You can choose the API version that you would want to interact with based on the IBM MQ server that you are interacting with. You provide the queue manager name, the queue, and then there are different processing mode that you can operate on the sender side. So you can decide to choose whether you want to read and delete at the same time. You want to delete the message only after the iFlow execution is completed, meaning that you read the message, you process your iFlow execution, and then only after your iFlow execution is successful, you delete the message later. You can also decide to choose keep message and process again for your testing scenarios as well. Here we do have the max number of messages per node again. So each poll, how many messages you're going to poll from a particular topic or a queue, you define it here. You can then, of course, provide the request headers. So in case you want to provide any custom headers at time of polling, you can also provide that. And then with the response header, you can control what headers you get back from the IBM MQ server. When it comes to the receiver adapter, it also has the REST protocol, which you can choose. So when you choose the IBM MQ adapter, it will give you an option of choosing JMS and HTTPS. HTTPS is the REST protocol variant of IBM MQ. Connection tab remains pretty much same as the REST variant of sender adapter. And on processing side, you would have option of writing data into a queue. You can also read data from the receiver adapter using these option of read and delete. And if you choose to use the read, then you have another option that you can also use to delete. Once you read the data, you process it, and then you want to delete it later. So these are the options that are available on the receiver side. Again, you have possibility of choosing different API versions with IBM MQ. And then based on these versions, you can also see that you would have different possibilities. So for example, with version 3, you can also decide and you can provide the message priority for a particular message. With version 2 and version 1, it doesn't exist. So based on these API version, you will have different functionality, and you can also decide to choose based on your IBM MQ server version as well. You have the possibility of providing the correlation ID, the message expiration time, whether you want to send the message as a persistent or as a non-persistent message, and then reply queue as well. So this is on a very high level, all the different possible combination, different possibilities that you have with our IBM MQ adapter. Let's very quickly look at a quick demo. So I have a scenario wherein we have IBM MQ on the sender side. I have a JMS subscribe variant, and this is already deployed, meaning there's an active subscription on it. We are going to receive a request of order create, and I'm listening to this particular queue. We will get the data. We will do some manipulation on the data. In this case, I'm sending it to a process direct adapter, which is a different type flow in my integration suite, which is going to send the data to a CRM application, receive a response back, Once the response is received, I'm sending this data to a different queue. In this case, I'm sending it to a response queue. And of course, as part of sending the response, I'm also adding, in this case, the order ID as a correlation ID, which will help me to search the message later on. Also a customer ID as part of the JMS message property. Let me very quickly initiate one message. And I'll also go to my monitor tab to see the execution. I've triggered a message and I see that the message is also delivered right away to me. I would have received the message, I would have sent it to a CRM application, got an order request creation request done, and this should then ideally send the message to my response queue, which I will bring up now here in my screen. So this was a queue that I was getting the response in. I just got a message here with the demo receiver application and that I've chosen. And if I go and look at this message, and if I go to the name property, I see the order ID, I see the customer ID that I was sending as part of my write operation. So this is a very quick demo of the sender and the receiver adapter, along with the functionalities that we do support in both the variants of the adapter. Coming next is certificate-based authentication, as we highlighted. It would be live pretty soon, mostly in next couple of weeks. We are also working on the cloud connector support for the JMS variant. So this should be also live in upcoming weeks as well. Maybe we can take few questions. You can type in your question in the Q&A option that you have, and we are actively looking on it.
Yeah, John here. I can jump in just to repeat the question which came. Someone asked, how can I connect to an IBM MQ server installed on a local Windows server that doesn't have MQ web running? So I was mentioning that you could connect to it basically using the JMS variant. I mean, if you have your MQ server installed, you need to know, of course, the host name and the port number and all those authentication that Shashank was explaining earlier. If you have it available and you can even connect with your local MQ client, then you'll be able to connect as well from the adapter. However, if you say it's on premise, one has to be sure, of course, that your runtime server can reach this MQ from a network perspective. So you could use the edge integration cell, from that perspective, because it's on premise, and I'm assuming that your IBM MQ, then it's not exposed to the internet, obviously. Therefore, that's what you will do. In the future, there will also be access via the cloud connector. But today you can use the IEC. I hope I answered your question there. Yeah. And I believe if there's more questions, you can still post it here. Another question on top of this. And maybe I could add, these adapters are available, directly on your integration suite license. You have it automatically. Basically, you can just drag an iFlow, drag a connector, you will see it already appeared. It's already included in your license, right? So there's no extra license needed. Yeah. As far as Edge, Edge integration cell, which is in integration suite, you can run your iFlows on the cloud, or you can run it on premise. But in order to run it on premise, you need to enable the so-called Edge integration cell, right? So it's like a runtime engine that you install on your on-premise environment, because you need something which can reach it network-wise, basically. I could put the link here if that's not clear what that is, so you can see later on. But like I say, at a later stage, there will also be a cloud connector possibility, but today you can use the edge integration. So. Okay, Shashank, we could go to the next one.
Yeah. So of course, as in this is an adapter which is also evolving. So if you have any feedbacks, feel free to reach out. There's an influence page from SAP. You can post your requirements there. We are actively looking on it. You can also raise a ticket in case you want to highlight any, have any feature request, anything like that. You can also do that under the component of LOD, HCI, Con, TRPO. You can, we have monthly webinars that are happening, so you can always tune to these webinars. We are talking about different other possibilities of connecting to different applications. So this webinar talks about different adapters that we have within the SAP integration suite. So you can stick to this, and if you have any questions on that, of course, feel free to reach out. I think, of course, if you have some challenges working with the adapter, feel free to book our 1 hour session, a 1 hour free session. You can reach out to our email address, which is help@rohoconsultancy.com, and we will maybe have a 1 hour session to help you out with your first configuration.
And like we mentioned, you can also just open a normal ticket request for information, you know, the way you open tickets at SAP, right, with your question. That's another alternative way that you can use. Yeah. I just posted the link there for the edge integrations. I just took a very quickly a blog, but you know, you can read on it. Okay. I think this was the end of our presentation. I hope it answers some of your questions, but feel free to reach out as we mentioned, and we'll be happy to carry on the conversation with you. Shank, if you can move to the next. Okay, I think there's still one. No, the previous one. Okay.
The previous, the
next, the previous one. Yes, please. I'll give you it here. So with this, I think we thank you for attending the session and looking forward to, you know, assisting you for configuring some of your flows where you need help, or give us feedback, as Shashank mentioned, together with our SAP colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for joining in.
Okay. Bye-bye.